Kent Community Foundation, as you know, Natalie, receives hundreds of applications each year. In fact, over 1,000 normally we would receive and have to assess. So can you just explain for everyone what our due diligence process is and what you look for in a good application, especially in terms of what some of the obvious red flags might be that you would look for?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so you're right, Josephine. We get over 1,000 applications a year, and every one of those applications goes through our due diligence process. So we're a team of 8 professional grant makers looking at this day in, day out, all through the year. We kind of break it down into 2 parts, really. So we have the due diligence part, and then we have the assessment part. So due diligence is really the basic essentials. So those are the things that every applicant must meet. There must be a tick in all of those boxes. So that's around things like the governing document. So is there a proper governing document which stipulates how the organisation operates? Are there at least 3 unrelated trustees, committee members, directors? Does the organisation have a bank account in its own name? And of course, the broad remit is that everything the applicant does must be charitable. There must be a charitable aim or a charitable intent there. So we look at those 4 areas in quite a lot of detail. So for the bank account, for example, we would always request a copy of 2 or 3 copies actually of bank statements to see that it's functioning normally, that there are payments going in, payments going out, there are no large cash transactions, or if there are, then we ask a question as to what that's about. We seek to be satisfied that the organisation is run effectively, run properly, reporting to Charities Commission on time or Companies House on time if they're registered with those institutions. We check that there are proper checks and balances in place in terms of the governance and the service delivery. So once an organisation has got through that stage, and not all of them do, the majority of them do, but not all of them, the application will go on to a full assessment. So this is where one of my grants managers will look at the quality of the application. Has it been properly planned? The need for the work that is seeking funding. Is there demonstrated need? Is there a demand? If the organisation puts on this piece of work, will people come? Do they work in partnership effectively with other organisations in the area? Do they have a track record? If they do, can they tell us about the impact of their previous work? Often, when we can, we go and visit an organisation, and we like to see them in action, particularly if they're new to us, if we've not funded them before. You get a brilliant sense of an organisation if you're in their space, seeing them, deliver their service, and you get to chat to their beneficiaries. So that's ideal, and we put a lot of resource into doing that, and not all grant makers are able to do that, but we prioritise it. So a good application to us is one that is meeting a demonstrated need. So we do lots of work on the needs across the county. So we have an idea what particular needs there are in the 12 districts that we work in, and we look to match applications with those needs wherever we can. So we know that the biggest impact is being made. We need to be able to understand pretty easily what difference the grant will make. So what would happen if this grant wasn't made? What difference is going to be made to the lives of the people that the organisation is working with? We like to see user involvement wherever we can. So it's always good if there's like a service user participation group, or they're able to feed ideas into the service delivery. That's always a big positive. We look at use of volunteers. That's always a really positive thing. If an organisation is using volunteers well and effectively, and training them and supporting them, and involving them properly in service delivery, because there's a massive amount of added value there, of course, which is also a real positive for our fund holders. And then we look at value for money as well. Actually, we kind of we'll compare similar projects like with like, and just like a sense check that there is a parity across similar work being delivered, and that salaries are, you know, within a reasonable range, for example. So yeah, that would be an ideal application if it's ticking all of those boxes. A red flag, of course, if an organisation fails anything on the due diligence process, then it stops there, and until that's remedied, we're unable to progress. I mean, we do, when that happens, we do give advice and information to applicants, so they can, we tell them how to rectify and where they need to go, and that, you know, if they haven't got a particular policy in place, then we would give them a sample policy. Say, like working with vulnerable adults, we wouldn't need to see a safeguarding policy there. If theirs isn't up to scratch or they don't have one, then we would point them in the right direction. So we don't just kind of say no and then just leave them. We try and support them onward in their journey, as it were. If an organisation had absolutely no track record and no connections in Kent, we'll say an organisation had previously been working in London and was in secondary school, say for example, and submitted an application and saying that they were going to do the same in Kent, but there was no detail about which district, which schools, there was no evidence of interest in those schools. There was no evidence of liaison with other educational charities in the district, then that for us would be a big red flag. We look at the amount of grant requested in relation to their overall income. So, you know, if a small organisation came to us, say income 50,000 a year, and they were asking us for 25,000, for example, that would be a red flag. That would be something that we would seek to understand more about, because we would be uncomfortable being a 50% funder in that situation. That's not good. That's not good grant making practice. It's better for organisations to have a range of sources of income wherever possible. And just generally, if there was a lack of detail, you know, that would be a red flag. But often that we can draw out that detail, and if we think there is something good there and we need a bit more, we can always draw that out in the conversations we have.